Happy Thursday, friends. It's a little bit before noon, I know, but we have a bajillion questions today. Not a bajillion, but a lot. So I wanted to make sure I got on here a little bit early so that I can cover everything. Thank you all for your questions. A couple of you messaged me, a couple of you posted in the group. So whatever way you want to ask them, good with me. I will always try my best to get to everything. So we're starting a little early today. So first things first, I wanted to talk to you guys about a challenge. I've talked a little bit about it in the group. It involves two things. So first thing we talked about was my class profiles, especially if you're on my email list. And a couple of you joined an email list to get my class profiles. So I decided that the best way to give you some of my class profiles is through a challenge. So here's what we're going to do. And you will have the option to buy them if you don't win the challenge, but I think a challenge will be really fun. So here's what's going to happen. 7 days starting later this month, so September 24th. So we got some time. I know it's the beginning of the school year. Fall is starting. It's a little crazy, so we're going to wait a little while, but September 24th to September 30th, we're going to do a Cue That Tune challenge. I'm really pumped. So we're going to have a separate Facebook group. So, you know what we're going to do before I forget? We're going to have a separate Facebook group for this. It's going to be, like I said, 7 days. What we're going to do every day is I'm going to provide a song, which is going to be tricky, right, to pick the right songs. But I'm going to provide a song. I'm going to post it in the morning. And you're all going to, if you're in the challenge, if you want to participate, you're going to figure out a way that you would cue that song in a class. And you're going to post it in the group. So I'm going to say that you can explain it in any way that you think is helpful. That could include a video, or you could just write out what you would do. You could post a video of yourself talking through it. Whatever it is, you're going to post something in there. And then for every day that you respond with, it's got to be a reasonable, you can't just say 3 words, like a reasonable example of what you would do with the class, you're going to get a ticket, a raffle ticket, more or less, or you're going to get your name in a hat. So let's say you respond all 7 days, your name will go in the hat 7 times. And at the end of the 7 days, I'm going to pick from those names, and whoever wins gets a class profile bundle that I'm making right now. It's just going to be like 3 profiles. I'm going to make them really thorough. I'm going to also include some cues, because I know you guys always love the cues. So I think they're going to be pretty good, and you'll get them all for free. And then anyone who doesn't win and wants the class profile bundle, or you don't want to participate in the challenge and you still want the bundle, I'll have them for sale, maybe like $10 or something cheap. So that is an option, but I think the challenge will be really fun. I'm going to put right here in the comments the sign up if you're interested. And if you're watching this after the fact, just scroll down and look for this link in the comments. So sign up there if you're interested. I think it's going to be really fun. Like I said, September 24th, winner gets the class profile bundle for free. So it'll be fun. Check it out. So let's hop into our questions for the day. So first question was, I apologize, I always forget to write names here. I forget who asked this, but somebody was asking about new studios, and they're interested in finding out how to get and retain clients for their studio. Ha! Wouldn't we all love to know the answer to that one? Whether you own a studio or not, same issue, getting people in your classes, getting people in your studio. When it comes to a specific studio, especially if it's a new one, I think the best way to get new clients is what we're doing actually at my studio this upcoming weekend. Is we're calling it a free fall kickoff. If you guys are in the Boston area, come check it out. Free fall kickoff weekend. So it's a whole free weekend. Every single class is free. We got 10 classes. So we're also kind of showcasing some new instructors. Great way to, no strings attached, get people in the studio to try a ride, because with cycling, I truly believe the hardest thing is to get people in for their first time, because it is so intimidating for someone who's never been in a spin class before. It is, we forget how intimidating it is because we've been doing it forever, but that is really the key, to get people in the doors. That is how you get and retain clients. So that's how you get clients. The way to retain them is by giving a good product. If they go in, and as simple as that, if they go in and they like their first ride, they will come back. if they feel like the front desk was welcoming, if they feel like they had someone who helped them set up their bike and made them feel comfortable, if afterwards someone came in and checked in on them, made sure they did okay, you know, all that stuff, if they had everything they needed, water, towel, all that stuff. Giving a good experience is what's going to get people coming back. Now, there's a lot of systems you can set up. So, you know, a new rider immediately gets an email that promotes something so they get discounts. Or, you know, a returning rider who hasn't come back in a while comes in, same thing. Maybe they get an offer, a special offer. There's a lot of things mechanically that you can do on the back end. But at the end of the day, if you give a good experience, if you have good instructors, which is key, good instructors who care about their riders, you will get people in your studio. As easy as that, because word of mouth is the best way to get people in, and that's what happens when you have a good class. So the other thing you could do is, depending on what your niche is and who your demographic is, you might be able to go promote to local mom groups or colleges, high schools. Maybe offer a discounted class for, you know, the high school lacrosse team for some conditioning classes, or you know, the local Bible study, you know, come in for, I don't know, find those groups that kind of fit your niche and offer a discount, offer a group package, offer a private ride. That's the kind of stuff that really gets people's attention and gets them in the studio. Charity rides are big. We do a ton of them. It's how we get a lot of people in for the first time, and then they come back after the fact. So even though we do the ride for free, it's a great way for us to get new people in the studio, because almost everyone in those charity rides has never been before. So that's another great way. And VIP programs, if you have member VIP programs, make your valued members feel like they're part of an exclusive club. That's also a great way to kind of retain clients. So that's just a few ideas. There's a million. You can Google this stuff, look up like marketing for studios, and I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I read this stuff all the time, but I'll get back to you, because there is just so much you can do. It really depends on who you're serving and what kind of niche you need to follow, and that will determine how you need to offer things. So hopefully you can pull something out of all the things I mentioned and focus on that and just go full force with that. Don't try and do everything. It's too much. So I could talk about that for an hour, but I'm not going to. Number 2, what was our next question? Oh, this was good. So we were talking about in an email, somebody was asking me about HIIT classes, and I know we hear about HIIT classes all the time, whether it's cycling or otherwise. People love HIIT, right? They love to work really, really hard until they're basically dying on the ground. HIIT classes, if they're done right, can be great. I think most classes we all teach are interval-based, not always HIIT necessarily. An interval doesn't need to be high intensity all the time. Misnomer. But I will say that it is difficult to cue. So this person was asking me about how to properly motivate and inspire riders in a HIIT ride to really get that high intensity interval to the best of their ability. So I had a ton of stuff here. We were talking via email, so there was a lot more context, but the person I was speaking with was saying that she uses an RPE scale and then gives RPMs. One thing I would just say is to make sure that your riders fully understand RPE. I think that's a huge problem. It is a great thing, RPE, if you use it, but most riders don't get it. Really, they don't. Like, you could tell them to be at a 5 out of 10, but it's still really hard to gauge unless they know what their 6 and their 4 looks like, right? Or their 10 and their 1 even. They might be a new rider. So if you are using RPE, you have to make sure you fully explain that at the beginning of class so people really understand what that is. It is a good way if people understand it. So yeah, tell them it should feel challenging. Maybe describe it as much as you can. So in a high intensity effort, they are completely out of breath, right? They're dying, they're working hard, their legs are burning. That's what it should feel like. They're breathless, and you have to explain in HIIT, you have to give them numbers. So you have to tell them this is going to be a 30-second effort, and tell them when they're halfway through. Tell them when they have 5 seconds left. Because when you're pushing, you guys know this, when you're pushing your daylights out and you just want to stop, you need to know how much longer you're doing it. Otherwise, you're going to give up early. Even us, even instructors. If we don't know how long we're pushing, we won't be able to get to the end. So that is something very important in your cueing. And it can be motivational if you push them and then you tell them this many seconds left. It's going to motivate them. Trust me. Tell them, to hit maybe the highest, maybe it's the last effort of the day. You want them to hit their highest power that they've seen. You can cue them into that by really building it up. There's so many different ways. It's hard, I will say though, in the middle of a high intensity effort to cue, because they're so focused and they're pushing so hard that they're not really listening unless you're counting them down to the end, right? So it's important when you're doing HIIT to cue beforehand. So get them ready, guys. This is our last push of the day. I want you to give me everything that you have. Anything that's left in that tank empties right here, right now. We walk out of that room feeling strong, feeling confident, feeling like we tried our best. Here we go. And that's, I just made that up, but something of that energy and sort right before a push would be really good. But in the middle of a push, it's hard, right? Because they don't really want to hear you. They want to use the music and they want to push, but they don't want to also have to listen and do what you're saying. They just want to push. So I'm rambling, but you get the idea. There's a lot of motivational stuff I have in the 20 free cues. If you haven't downloaded that, you can check that out. I should have mentioned that in the email. I think I might do another one of those. Do you guys find those cues helpful? It's easy for me to I'm using that stuff all the time. So I could make another free cue sheet at some point and offer that up. Free cues round 2, something like that. If you guys would find that helpful, maybe let me know in the comments or shoot me a message or something, because I can easily do that if you guys really struggle for cues. But in general, in HIIT, you just got to coach them out of ignoring the burn, pushing through, and, strength and power, energy, all of that good stuff. Even just those words, I find, like when they're in a push, if you really want to say something to cue them, just use those strong words like strength, power, force. It's crazy when you hear that when you're in the middle of an effort, what one word can do. So anyways, okay, I could go on forever. Again, I can give you cues if you guys need that. I'm happy to do that again. I know that seems to be a common theme. So let me know in the comments again, even if you're watching this, the recorded version, let me know if that's something helpful. If I get enough feedback, I'll do it. Okay, next one. Katie asked about repeating class profiles and playlists. She said, I just finished 1 year of mostly new material, but a few of my riders have expressed they like repeat classes. So I actually have heard that too from riders. So a couple things here. It depends where you teach and what they allow. At our studio, because people are paying a premium for our classes, we don't allow instructors to repeat classes because they might have a rider that's a super fan that comes every day and they're paying for a new class, they want a new class, right? So here's what I would say to that. I often reuse certain songs. So maybe I have a song that I love the choreography for and it really gets people going. It worked really well in class. Maybe I'll use that one again next week with a different mix of songs. Or maybe one didn't go so well, so I'm going to make sure I don't use that again. I'm going to mark it, or I'm going to do something different with it. So maybe I'll repeat like 3 classes from a class profile in next week's profile. I also would take a class that maybe I did 3 months ago, take the music and just reach, and we talk about this a lot in the PsychoPoet method. So if you want details, you can check that out. It's katehoerner.com/psychopoet method. But I do a whole module on repurposing. But there's a lot of different ways that you can use what you've had before without repeating exactly what you did. And I think that's the key. You don't want to give them the exact same class again. And yes, there is value in that. And maybe where you teach would allow that. But you also, and I will say too, if you're doing like a 6 a.m. and a 6 p.m. class in the same day, totally fine to reuse because you're not going to have the same people in that class. But if you're teaching, consecutive days or every other day, you're going to want new classes because those are the same people. So even if they like it, I would say change it up a little bit just to give them some variety, because obviously we like what we're comfortable with, right? Because it's comfortable. But if they know what's coming, they might pace themselves a little bit more and not push as hard. So it's kind of a benefit to us when we can coach them through it and they don't necessarily know what's coming up next. But again, if your gym allows it, maybe there's a place for that. It's really up to you. The last thing I'll say about that is you have to be excited to teach it. So personally, if I teach a class, I want something new the next time because I get bored. I get bored, they get bored. I want something different. So for me, it's important that I'm changing my music and changing my class profile because I want to do something else. If you really enjoy teaching the same class, your class does, and your gym allows it, then have at it. I think it's really going to be kind of a case-by-case basis for that question, but it is a good question. Okay. Last question. I'm rushing through these. Oh, hang on. Let me check these comments. Do you have people sign up in advance for the free classes, or is it first come, first serve? Okay, so this is back to for new studio. Stephanie, we have people sign up in advance. We start pushing before, like 2 weeks ahead of time, because you really want to promote the hell out of any sort of free event that you're doing. Have people sign up, build anticipation, get them excited. Only X amount of spots left. If you want to come try our ride, like today's the day, sign up, get your spot, no strings attached, free ride, all that stuff. If it's first come, first serve, and you get a bunch of people showing up and then there's not enough spots, then you're going to turn those new people off and they're not going to come back. So I would say definitely have people sign up in advance for that and use it as an excuse to really build some anticipation. Get on social media, really promote the hell out of it. Get on your email list, get to those people that maybe haven't been in yet, but they expressed interest, all that stuff. And by the way, make sure you have an email list. Yeah. So yes, advance, have them sign up. I've subbed so many classes over the years, and I always hear the other person talks too much. Thanks for just letting us ride. I laugh because it's like you said, sometimes just let them push through it. Yeah. Yeah. I think that is a very interesting thing that I've found, actually, even with just our instructors, Amy, that people really have totally different interests when it comes to instructors. And that's why I always tell you guys, if you're not filling your classes because you're different from someone else, it doesn't mean that you're not a good instructor. I will tell you that I teach very differently than some of our instructors, and then very similarly to a couple of them. It's a total preference. And I tend to talk, I think I talk medium. I think I don't talk too much because I do think there's value in silence, but I definitely don't want to leave them wanting more. So, but we do have a couple instructors who pretty much talk through the whole class, and people love that because they need to stay engaged the whole time and they need to hear a voice. They're always looking up for the next thing. And some people want quiet. So it really depends. But yeah, it's kind of funny because people are going to complain no matter what, right? Or they're going to love you and hate the other person. And there's a whole lot of that in spinning. So, okay, sorry. Last question. Vero was asking about common injuries for cycling and how to prevent them, and also asked how to prevent getting sick because he has kids. Okay, so in terms of getting sick, I am not a miracle worker, so I don't have like the antidote for that, but I will say that vitamin C and electrolytes have always helped me. So if you can get, I have like a powder for electrolytes. I don't usually like powders and supplements, but it does serve me well because I usually run low on electrolytes. In the winter, especially, vitamin C is key. Make sure you're getting plenty in your diet. Clean your bike both before and after you teach. Before is important because the person before you might not have cleaned it off when they finish, and that grosses me out. So make sure you clean, and clean every knob. Clean if you use a bar or weights, clean those. Clean the stereo if you can without messing it up. All that jazz, you want to clean it. Don't share mic covers. Get your own. Trust me, it's worth it. If you're touching the mic, again, maybe clean it or clean your hands. Get a mic belt so that your sweat is not mixing with somebody else's sweat. There's a lot of things we can do to kind of just stay, in general, as healthy as we can. Anything that you can think where you're not touching somebody else's sweat or germs is the key. So hopefully that's helpful with that. The other thing that you asked about is injuries. So I've seen a million and one things with injuries in cycling. I will say that personally, knock on wood, I have never gotten injured from cycling, and I do it a ton. I'm sure I'll get overuse injuries at some point. I used to run, and I think I was injured perpetually. I never once wasn't injured while I was running through that. So much prefer cycling for that reason. But most injuries I see are a result of poor bike setup, which is why it's important for us to pay attention to our riders, especially the returning riders who, honest to God, I think the worst bike setups I've seen are people who have been riding for years and just have been riding for years at the wrong setup. They'll come to us for the first time and they'll say, well, this instructor taught me to do it this way, and their seat is so low that their knees are up at their ears. It's ridiculous, but keep an eye on your riders for that reason. So some of the stuff I've seen, knee pain from the bike seat being way too low or too far forward. Lower back pain is pretty common, which also can lead to hip issues, which I think you mentioned, Vero, and hip flexors and piriformis issues, because once your posture is thrown off and your lower back is off, everything can go astray. So lower back, it's a little bit of bike setup. You could put the handlebars a little bit higher if you have lower back pain. Work your core separately from being on the bike. You have to have a strong core, and I don't mean doing sit-ups. That's not going to work your core. Sprints are a great way to work your core, planking, that sort of thing. Just make sure you are strengthening your core off the bike, because the bike doesn't really build strength in the core, but it does require a strong core. So if you don't have one, it's going to hurt your form and it's going to end up causing injury. And the other thing you should do if you're experiencing lower back pain is to pay attention to what you do the other 23 hours of the day outside of the studio. If you're sitting at a desk all day, hey, like right here, and I'm leaning forward like this, or my seat is way too low, or my seat is way too high, or honestly, just sitting in good posture for X amount of hours, you're going to have a little bit of back pain once you get onto a bike. It might just happen when you transition because you're used to this. Other things, maybe you have like a manual labor job, or maybe you're standing all day, maybe you're a teacher. These sort of things will affect whether you get injured when you go to exercise, because your body is already taxed from whatever you were doing all day or the day before. So keep an eye on the other stuff that you do. Injury is not always caused by what we do on the bike. Neck pain. Sorry, I jotted all these. I had a list of injuries and they went on for like 8 pages, so I'm trying to summarize. Neck pain. Often we'll see our riders riding with their necks down, or more common, looking at you and they have their neck cranked up. This is not a neutral position. You want your spine to feel like it's a straight line, nice and flat. So my head all the way to my butt. So you don't want your head like this or like this. You don't want their head like that. So if you see them looking up at you like this, maybe cue them for that neutral spine, that strong back, that strong core. I think that that's a very common one, especially for riders that like to look at us the whole time, which might be another reason to use that silence, right? So that they can just ride and not so focus on looking up. But neck pain is very common. It can also happen if the handlebars are too low, because they're reaching down and their head has to come up. So make sure handlebars are good. Wrist pain, I'm sure you guys see this a lot. People holding the handlebars like this. Yeah, no. We want on the side. It's so hard to show this. On the side, this is how I hold. So I have a neutral wrist and I'm holding right outside on the handlebars. So I'm not bending. I've actually had to be wearing this thing on my wrist covered in dog hair. Sorry, gross. Because I was having wrist pain, even though I was holding it. Okay, I noticed I was tensing a little bit. We all tend to do that once in a while, right? So I had to wear that for a little while because I got some tendonitis. So I lied. I have had injury on the bike, if you count that overuse. But people often are squeezing the shit out of the handlebars, and they're also bending their wrists in an unneutral way. So that can cause wrist pain for sure. So make sure you're cueing that to loosen up the upper body, loosen up the fingers, wiggle the fingers, have a nice neutral position. Feet. God, there's a lot of stuff we see. Hot feet, right? They feel like their foot's overheating. They feel like their foot is like swelling in their shoes if the Velcro is too tight around their cycling shoes, or they're wearing sneakers and their foot is molding over the pedal. It's going to cause things like plantar fasciitis. So make sure that, foot is comfortable in the shoes. It's not too tight. Should be wearing cycling shoes. It really is like a absolute necessity, especially if riders are coming often. That'll prevent some foot issues in the future. So that's key. I think that's all I had. I mean, there's so many things that we could talk about when it comes to riding, but those are like the bigger ones that I see more often. And those are the ones that I think can be prevented if we set people up correctly. Okay, guys, I just rambled for quite some time. Do we have any more questions? If you didn't hear me talk about the Cue That Tune 7-day challenge, go back and listen to this after I post the recording. It's going to be awesome. 7 days, September 24th, we're starting. Going to be in a separate group. Winner gets the class profile bundle that I'm making. It's going to be good. I'm really pumped for it. I think you guys are going to have a lot of fun with it. I think I got to all these questions. Let me just make sure. Okay. All right. Anything else? Anything else? Last call. No. Okay. I will see you guys next week. I'll post in here more about the challenge. Actually, I'll probably send it to the email list. So remember, sign up. I posted the link in the comments. If you're interested at all in the challenge, sign up in that link. You can always decide not to later, but if you want to get the information, make sure you sign up there. So I'll send out an email for that shortly. Okay, guys, have a wonderful rest of your week. First week in September. It's beautiful here. Loving the last bit of summer. Gotta enjoy it. All right, everyone. Have a great day.